All right. So I was thinking a lot recently about episodic series because I bought the Sailor Moon S DVDs from Australia and encoded them and ripped them and was going back and rewatching them. And the thing that stood out to me kind of the most was how all this original content was true to the characters and contributed something uh, to the knowing who the characters are and kind of what was engaging about Sailor Moon. Not only for me, I've talked to a lot of other fans of the series, and they constantly bring up that these characters feel real. They feel like real girls, that they're empowered in some way, and that got me to thinking. All of this is classically filler content. None of it's in the manga. Um, in these small episodes, what makes them really great filler content with the scare quotes implied? And I think I've stumbled upon the fact that the plot is contingent on the characters. That they generate what happens, and you'll see that as we go through this episode in particular. Um, but also, I think that's true of any episodic series. Like, there's maybe a kernel of contrivance at the beginning, but then it's the characters interacting that makes the appeal of the episodic series, but also kind of the body of how people understand the characters. So let's go on here. The episode we're going to be taking a look at is episode 97, The Labyrinth of Water Amy Targeted. It's directed by Junichi Sato, very famous, storyboarded by him as well. And the writer is Megumi Sugihara. She, I checked, didn't do much else. She has writing credits on a few other shows, but really nothing in particular. So it's not like this is some masterclass, Mario Kata thing. So I want to go through the general structure of it and explain how it's all put together, and then I've got a nice little graph at the end to show the points of agency. So what Sailor Moon will do in its filler content is generally focus on one of the characters for one of the episodes. And usually each season, these characters will get one or two episodes where they kind of star in it, and it really gives a chance to see how they interact with not only the other cast, but different things like monsters of the day, different problems that are presented to them. This one's about Ami, or Sailor Mercury. So the episode starts on her talking to her teacher, some authority figure in her school, and the authority figure kind of says, Ami's a very studious person. She's very quiet and demure and very smart. So this person's saying, he comes in saying, Ami, sorry, you don't have to. I know you help your friends. Don't let them hold you back. And she's kind of bewildered by that, but Usagi in the bottom there overhears it. And I just love the way the shot's structured. This isn't really relevant to the writing, but, looking down from behind this guy who's not really important on the two characters. So you see Usagi hear this and say, she gets wrecked, so to say, because, she's told that she's holding Amy back, or that's what this teacher thinks. And that's kind of the first scene before the credits. And so that's the first interaction. And while we go through this, I want you to think about, like, scenes where characters interact together. Now, Ami doesn't talk to Usagi in this scene, so that wouldn't be one of them, but it is kind of a shared scene that they both react to the same stimulus, the same initiating conceit. So then we kind of get this weird scene where Mamoru comes in. Now, and this scene is mostly to have a way for Ami to express her concerns over what she wants to do. She doesn't want to be defined entirely by studying, but really that's all her character is at a point. So this scene is her kind of getting that all out on Mamoru. Now, Mamoru is not in Sailor Moon a very interesting character. He has no crisis of identity. He doesn't, isn't challenged in any way a lot of the time. So it's kind of weird putting him here. Um, and I think what this does is allows us to get inside Ami's head without, it feeling awkward or contrived. So he gives her some advice that, she should keep doing what she wants to be doing, not really important, but we get to better understand what Ami's going through. The next scene is in a pool, and Ami goes for a swim, and then while underwater, she meets this character. This is one of the characters introduced for Sailor Moon S, is Sailor Neptune, or Michiru. So Michiru immediately challenges Ami to a swimming race. Now, kind of the thing you gotta remember here is, or the pun, I guess, is that Mercury in Japanese is called Suisei, which means water planet. Neptune is, what is it? Male or something, Meose, something like that. Or Kaiose, that's it. And it means water king planet. So, basically Neptune, right? But that's why they're both in the pool, So she challenges her to a race, and Ami ties. She essentially ties her. And she comes up, she says, good race, Neptune. That was real engaging, thank you for that. And Neptune blows her off, leaves her alone in the pool, and doesn't talk to her. And then she says, why did you slow down? And she's very cold. So this is this interaction where Ami was challenged, and then she reacted in one way. And then this other character is reacting to Ami's reaction to the challenge. So I know this sounds like incredibly basic or like, duh, right? But this type of thing right here is so much what we never really see in a whole lot of anime, or stuff that gets glossed over and really taken for granted. That kind of the plot of this thing its conceit is it wants to explore Ami's themes of who she wants to be and determination and all that. But the plot itself is made from the characters interacting. Now, this is entirely in character for both of these based on what we know about them already. Ami very demure, she doesn't like confrontation at all. And Sailor Neptune and Uranus and S are entirely like staunch. They're idealistic. They are very coarse, very rough. They don't want to work with the other girls because they think they would hold them back. So we get the shots of her back, not turning towards her, and Ami's kind of hurt by Michiru's words. It's, well, she should, and you get this really nice shot of her being compressed and dejected, and she exits the scene. But then it doesn't. I think this is where you would find a lot of poor writing, or lesser writing, I guess, would just cut to the next thing. This one actually stays on Michiru, and then we have this voice from up top on the diving board saying, "You were a little hard there. That was a little rough." And Michiru having this moment of called into question by her lover and soulmate Haruka. So again, Haruka kind of fills the same void as Mamoru in this one. Like it's not about him. He's not challenged in the way that Usagi and Ami and Michiru are, but she's just kind of like coming in and giving the real advice to Michiru. And then Michiru has this moment of like, wow, did I fuck up? Was this bad? Could I have done this better? Was that too much? And none of it's said. It's just this little lingering shot here. So then we go from this interaction with Michiru and Ami to the study group with the girls, where Ami's kind of the central figure, and they're all like, whoa, yeah, as soon as she walks in, then they're asking her a bunch of questions and everything. But Usagi, with what she has seen In the first thing, she reacted to hearing that we shouldn't bog Ami down, and um, she says, no, nobody bother Ami. She needs to study, and we don't aren't helping her do that. And this is Usagi making a decision based on what happened in the beginning. That was that central conceit of, the her overhearing the teacher tell Ami not to lose focus and put herself before her friends. And it's in character because Usagi is certainly more concerned with Ami than her own grades. So she wants her to succeed before she wants her help. So you have this thing where all the girls kind of take it, and then and then Usagi, instead of considering it, sees how dejected Ami is in this scene, and they do a nice slow motion effect here, which is very clear that she's hurt by this. And then Usagi, true to her character, reacts to that, and she says, "Oh no, I may have made a mistake here. This is something bad." Um, so the next scene, Ami's walking through town, and she's up there on the bridge. She doesn't even have any lines or anything. Before she can, there's Haruka, and Haruka being sent by Michiru on an explicit mission to go get Amy back so that she can race her again. And she comes up and she says, "My partner wants to challenge you again." And she offers her a ride on the motorcycle, and Ami declines. So they walk back together. And that I don't want to gloss over that, because that's a character taking an action off screen that we see the ramifications of. That Haruka was very explicitly sent by Michiru because Michiru has remorse for how she treated Ami earlier in the episode. And, it's not shown on screen, or it's not made a big deal of, but that is granting agency to Michiru in a way that it wasn't if Haruka, or if she just ended up back there and randomly encountered her again. So even in this Ami-centric episode, there's a ton of character building for Michiru. So anyway, they get back and they have their race again. They do the 100-meter freestyle, and this is kind of the catalyst or the tipping point, or whatever, the climax. So while they're swimming and neck and neck, and Ami has the whole internal monologue of getting it now in this external race. She's kind of learning the themes, or what we're trying to say in this episode. And why is very interesting. So at the outcome of the race, it doesn't really matter what the outcome is. They, this time, as opposed to, you remember when Michiru had her back to her after the first race, she's reaching out her hand and she helps her out of the water. And she says, kind of, "Good job, good race." And it's an element of respect there. When we see that this time, contrasting with the first time, Ami made the decision to try as hard as she could. And Michiru respects that and grants her admiration and respect because of that. And then you have these lovely shots. I think this is Ikahara who got these in here, but they're wonderful. Every time they leave a scene, they have one of these. So that's kind of the thing between Haruka and Ami, or Michiru and Ami. And now we have this monster of the day stuff that kind of happens, where it's take the girl's pure heart. And one, I think it's thematically fitting that they take her pure heart after she's kind of purified it or absolved herself of her insecurities. But it's neither here nor there. It's mostly a contrivance to get Usagi here. Usagi, who you remember left the study session to follow her specifically, and in a couple scenes that didn't, take. She was told by Luna and Artemis where she is, and it's the fantasy here is really just a contrivance to get Usagi to talk or confront what she did to Ami. And she's the nicest, smartest person, and she says here that she wants more than anything for Ami to achieve her dreams. That she knows she wants to be this great doctor, and she'll do anything to make that happen because she's valuable and she's my best friend, and goes on from there. So whatever, they beat the monster of the day, but it doesn't matter. And then you cut this quick scene of Haruka and Michiru having watched the entire thing go down, which is kind of not really in the context of an episodic story, but over the course of the Sailor Moon S, it's kind of their arc. In the beginning, the original inner soldiers can't fight the bad guys of the day. Haruka and Michiru both have to stop them. They have to destroy the monsters of the day for the express purpose of saving the other people. And this is kind of the first episode where they don't, and where they say, we're just going to watch. And it's kind of this arc to, the very end, where they're sitting there powerless watching Sailor Saturn and Super Sailor Moon. But that's neither here nor there. But let's not gloss over that. It is a decision by these characters not to act. And yeah. So then you have the final resolution of the, kind of the falling action of the Usagi and Ami arc, when Sailor Moon says to her, did I do something to hurt you? And Ami kind of, in the end, kind of gives a general overview of, what happened and why she was the way she was, why she thought the way she did, but that she understands that Usagi was looking out for her, and, everything's resolved. So here we've got kind of the basic structure, and I've organized it in this way because we see when the characters interact with other characters. So it starts off with overhearing the teacher about not getting bogged down, and that's kind of an Ami and Usagi thing. And there's the title of this presentation is the B-sides, right, of having more than one story going on at the same time. Now, this is not a particularly complicated one, or one that, requires a lot of effort, but it does do a great job of showing when these characters interact and when they make decisions. So there's no real decisions made in this first box, but it does kind of set up the plot and the themes. And then we get Ami's internal monologue, or not really. It's not really internal, it's external, because Mamoru's there. And that's kind of, it is her interacting with Mamoru, but again, Mamoru, his worldview is not challenged in any way by this, so we're kind of, he doesn't go through any crisis here, so we're just going to consider him kind of an external force. And then the first real interaction here that really goes to put two characters' worldviews against each other is that first swimming race. And in that first swimming race, they both display agency. They both react to something. And it's the actions of the other character. So then Haruka explains it, that she was too aggressive. And again, same thing as Mamoru, she's kind of off to the side. And then you have the other interaction where Ami, after just having that interaction with Michiru and having her worldview challenged of it's okay to slow down in a race, then Ami is hit with this other thing by Usagi telling her that all she needs to do is study and focus on herself. And the way she reacts to both of those is a catalyst for Michiru and Usagi to then react in turn and further the plot of the episode. So Michiru erases Ami. That's kind of her making amends. Ami has the inner tipping point of, I'm going to go all out. Michiru respects Ami. And Monster of the Day scene confirms what we know about Sailor Moon. So this is a nice little visual aid of showing that the story doesn't have to be focused purely on Ami. Um, and it does, in fact, flow from everybody's confrontations with Ami. Okay, great. We have a little time. So, in conclusion on the Sailor Moon S episodes, the value in the episodic series stems from how it allows your characters to breathe and see them react to a bunch of different stimuli. And the best stimuli, or the most interesting stimuli, is when characters interact with each other. So, to prove this point, let's keep going on here. I have enough time to talk about the next one. This is my favorite episode of Cowboy Bebop. Cowboy Bebop, a series I think that takes this kind of episodic storytelling to heart. And I looked up these, and the director, storyboarder, and writer for this episode aren't, again, any notable people. They've had a little more work than the previous writer, but again, it's very much a situation where this isn't world-breaking stuff. It's people who generally have an idea of how to write a story and then just go about thinking, what would this character do if? So this is the one where Jet goes back to his hometown and he visits his old lover. And he's hunting a bounty, and the bounty, she kind of rejects him. She left him, and then he's kind of faced with his past, and that's the larger theme of Cowboy Bebop. But now she's with the head they're trying to catch for the bounty, and they have these, again, in the same type of way. There's not 5 players this time, or there's only 2 relevant players. Like, the boyfriend doesn't have many decisions or anything. He's going to react kind of in a static way that we need for the purposes of the story. But the emphasis is really on how Jet and his old lover are going to react here. And it all comes down to this chase scene where they're in the boat and Jet's in the hammerhead behind them. And yeah, what a great metaphor for taking an action than a loaded gun. And that's kind of how it plays out in the climax here of his old girlfriend. He's trying to bring him in, and she's telling him to stop, to just let him go. And of course, this is all about the theme of moving on from the past. That Jet, in some way, has not moved on from his past, and she kind of says that in her dialogue. You were always right. You were so controlling. I never had to do anything. I wanted to fail. I wanted to make a mistake. And that's kind of what she's rebelling against here. But it's all based around her agency to not only, before the story happened, lead Jet, but also his desire, or his inability to change and be someone else, to be someone who is wrong in these instances, or to be the type of person that she needed for her personality to breathe, to not be a suffocating person. Jet can't not be that person. That's kind of the theme of Cowboy Bebop. They will fail to move on from who they were, or what they were in the past. And so another great example of all you have to do in an episodic series is set up 2 actors on a play, 2 or more, and just have them interact in a meaningful and believable way, and the story writes itself. That sounded less profound than I thought it did, but this is how I like to consume episodic stories, and it's how I've come to know a good writing in a good episodic story. So I guess I'll take any questions now.
I got a question.
Hit me.
So in that episode you're talking about with Bebop,
Mhm.
one of the major way the narrative unfolds is Jet questioning his motives for chasing after this old girlfriend and trying to suss out whether he's going after this young punk that she's dating because he is a young punk
Mhm.
or because he's doing it out of jealousy.
Right.
So he's trying to suss out his true motivations, which seems to play into your idea of agency, where he's trying to sort of gain control of his emotions, where he's like, if
Mhm.
I'm doing this out of jealousy, I don't want to do it. But if I'm doing it because I'm an ex-cop, that's why I'm doing it.
Mhm.
And so, how do you think that agency plays into a writer's concept of how to, um, plot out an episode plot? Because that's obviously very directed, where the whole thing is sort of like a metaphor for him searching within himself to figure out what he really wants.
Right. I don't think. I think in this case, there's kind of one tipping point. There's not really multiple interactions. It's just S. The whole episode is kind of setting up this one thing, and Spike's kind of on the other side of we got to bring in this bounty. Don't let your head get to you, Jet. And it's really all about that one central tipping point. So maybe if we drew a graph of this, it's not multiple interactions back and forth, but I think that it's still occurs in the same way, or that the agency is written into the character in the fact that he makes the decision to still be a cop or still be controlling and still be right, to not move on and let them go. And so it's really, I suppose, just one central question, or one central decision that Jet's making, one act of agency. And it's one act of agency for her too, that she doesn't give up. But then there's another act when she doesn't shoot Jet dead. So I
No, that's good. That's about.
for
I was just trying to see, central question versus, because you were saying they plotted the plot writes itself by having agency crash against
mhm.
agency over multiple things, but this is like a little different, obviously, because like you were saying,
Yeah,
one
it's
decision.
yeah, I get what you're saying. Like the same thing still happens. It's just a bit protracted. And a lot of the beginning of the episode is just setting this up. Any other questions?
So, yeah, I have a question. So, I guess I'm trying to expand it. So, what's your opinions on like trying to do this kind of storytelling when you're in stories that are not afforded the episodes to be able to do like the episodic? Because I mean, look
Right.
at Sailor Moon. That was episode, what was it, 94, 95? You
97, yeah.
also see Cowboy Bebop have 24 episodes. How do you view this when there is sort of that major or like a main storyline or like 12 episodes?
Right, exactly. Yeah. I think that then if you're beholden to some original script or some type of, things you have to hit along the way, then it's on the original content creator to have created the story in such a way that it enables the character's agency. You just did a presentation on Made in the Abyss, and that's a great one where Nanachi's actions are entirely dependent on the stimuli that's happened to her and the type of person she is, and then Reg's interactions with Nanachi match, understanding the previous actions, and then resulting from there and going on and on and on. So that but a lot of stories I see that are more structured in their plot don't have this kind of, I guess I would call it character generated plot structure. So agency can go by the wayside, or not. Decisions that characters make can be less important than random plot holes, or random bits of fantasy coming out of nowhere and doing things.
All right.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you, Kai.
Thanks for listening.